Hello and welcome to the Superhero Hub. I'm Sam,
I'm not.
and today we're going to be...
Opening superhero files.
Yep, that was very slow.
What a budget.
And what page have we turned to today?
Aries.
Yeah, due to the upcoming release of Wonder Woman, we thought you'd give you spoilers. Ares is the main villain, so we're going to give you everything you need to know. So sit down, get comfortable, and prepare to be educated. So, Ares, also referred to as Mars/War. First appearance pre-crisis was in Wonder Woman issue 1 in the summer of 1942. First appearance post-crisis was in Wonder Girl Volume 2 issue 1. He was created by Charles Moulton, which is obviously the pen name for William Moulton Marston, who created Wonder Woman.
Oh.
He also created the systolic blood pressure thing, which is used in the polygraph machine. He was an inventor as well.
Blimey, he got about, didn't he?
Yeah. So, during most of the Golden, Silver and Bronze Age, Ares was called Mars and was one of the most recurrent enemies of Wonder Woman. He was depicted as a Greco-Roman warrior in orange armour. Ares, who eventually became known as Mars, sought to realise his vision of eternal war and conflict in the world of man. He was chiefly opposed by Aphrodite, goddess of love, who sought to realise a contrary vision, of which being a loving civilization. Meanwhile, the men who worshipped Ares killed each other and their weaker brothers, selling women cheaper than cattle. When Ares taunted Aphrodite with the success of his plans, Aphrodite moulded from clay and breathed life into a new race of women, these being called
the Amazons.
Yeah. These women.
That's what I'm here for.
These women being stronger than Ares' men. Mars eventually created a home base on the planet.
Mars?
You know it.
That's too easy, wasn't it?
Not much thought there. Women are from Venus, men are from... Yeah. With its super powerful population enslaved to him and his chief deputies, Duke of Destruction, Lord Conquest, and the Earl of Greed. Mars's aide-de-camp is General Destruction. No, Duke of Deception, I think that is. So yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of referred to as the Duke of Deception, but really that's a separate character. He used Mars as an interplanetary headquarters, supplementing the enslaved Martian population with the spirits of the dead he collected from multiple war zones on multiple planets, including Saturn and Earth. Slave spirits became embodied after being ferried to the planet Mars, where they were subjected to strength tests to determine how best they would be used, whether as gladiators in slave games, personal slaves in the retinue of Mars himself, or employees of the war factories, one of which including the lie factory run by the Duke of Deception. The very strongest would be trained and given new bodies to be sent to wage future wars on Earth. He also set up the Injustice Court for humiliating slaves. Mars's Earth base was beneath Mount Olympus and was run by the Lord Conquest. From this base he sought to defeat the Allied cause in World War II, sending thoughts of conquest, deception and greed into the Axis leaders with the use of astral projection, but he found himself repeatedly thwarted by the Amazon champion Wonder Woman. When Wonder Woman rescued Steve Trevor from Mars, the war god ordered his 3 lieutenants to capture her. The Earl of Greed was sent and enlisted German aid, along with convincing the Dean of Holiday College to rob it, but failed and was imprisoned. The Duke of Deception gained Japanese help and captured Wonder Woman, but failed as she escaped before she left Earth, and he was imprisoned also. The Duke of Conquest gained Italian help and by trickery succeeded in shackling Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor and bringing them to Mars. Greed and Deception were released while Wonder Woman was imprisoned in the dungeons. However, with the help of Etta Candy's spirit form, Wonder Woman was able to escape. So I mean, just briefly reading through this, there are a lot of things that I think from the trailers we've seen so far are little things maybe they've worked in from them stories into the actual plot of the Wonder Woman film.
Yeah, kind of massaging together. Obviously, I think the film's World War One instead of two, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot they can pull from that. The Martian thing is interesting. I don't think they put that in the movie, but if they wanted to, there is possibly a way of hinting at the Martian Manhunter. Whether they ever get around to that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. So yeah, they end up overpowering Mars, whose iron palace was destroyed by his weapons. Zoe survived. The Duke of Deception tried many times to defeat Wonder Woman, but failed despite his cunning and incredible technology, and Mars stripped him of his mighty appearance, showing him to be a weak, toothless man. The Duke, after being set with female slaves, caused them to rebel and briefly ruled Mars. Mars repeatedly tangled with Wonder Woman on both Earth 1 and Earth 2 during a period when Diana abandoned her powers to live amongst the world of men as the Amazons retreated temporarily to another dimension. So that plays into the fact that
Wonder Woman's kind of out of the fighting game by the time we get to Batman v Superman.
Yeah. At that time, Mars started to call himself Ares. He battled the Amazons to secure the secret to domination of all dimensions of existence. His final scheme before the history-changing Battle of Crisis on Infinite Earths was to ally himself with Hades and the Anti-Monitor to subdue the gods of Olympus. As Wonder Woman engaged him in a final battle, Steve Trevor freed the gods and Hades' wife, Kor, of whom appealed to her husband with a message of love, leaving Mars isolated. Post-crisis, through his deceit and manipulations, Ares disposed Hades and became ruler of the underworld. Ares did his best to destroy the Amazons using Hercules against them, who sacked the island, but Diana was born and raised in the time to fight Ares as Steve Trevor's plane, driven by one of Ares' human puppets, crashed into Paradise Island. His plot was to fire missiles between the US and Russia at the same time, provoking World War III, but Diana stopped him, showing that the ensuing chaos would lead to his own downfall, because with the destruction of men, or well, all life on Earth, then there'll be no one to worship him, so he wouldn't have power, because he kind of relies that to bolster his abilities, the worship of people. Although he abandoned his plans that time, he possessed a human and changed his name to Ares Buchanan. He climbed the business ladder by providing high-tech weapons for gang wars. He fathered a child with Donna Milton, who was Circe in disguise. The child, Lyta Milton, possessed a great amount of magical power.
I wonder, I don't see them ever adapting something like that into the movies.
Well, it's interesting if they kind of stick to the formula of that they end up destroying Ares at the end of the film and whatever, because I mean, if it's still left ambiguous, you got to think that Circe's got to pop up in a sequel. You know what I mean? Unless they're just going to go with, I don't know, Cheetah as a main villain.
Yeah, okay, they'll hit on Cheetah eventually. It's still interesting to know where they're going to go with a Wonder Woman sequel. Like, do you bring it into the modern day like they did with Captain America, or do you carry on? If it's World War One, do you do a World War Two Wonder Woman movie?
Well, if she's been away for 100 years, then
I suppose
that means, I mean, from 1916, that was the end of World War One.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine her doing much in that 100-year period. So they'll probably bring it into modern day. So I mean, then you can gel it with the other things going around her. like other films affecting her film.
Hmm.
Yeah. Later, when realizing that a crossroads for the gods of Olympus was at hand, Ares confided in his half-sister Cassie Sandsmark about a future war. In exchange for additional powers, the only wish he requested in return was that from his sister was her love. He then travelled to Themyscira and kidnapped her daughter Lyta, who was under the protection of the Amazons. Circe confronted him and eventually agreed to raise their daughter in the underworld. He blessed Cassie with a powerful lasso able to expel Zeus's lightning in times of anger to use as a persona of Wonder Girl. In Amazon's attack, Ares leaves Circe and kidnaps her daughter again to raise on his own. He also has a son, Lord Lycus, whom Ares sends to interfere with Cassie's powers. Uh, in the future, Ares steals Wonder Woman's dead body and brings it to the present day and uses it to create his bride and chief agent Genocide. He imbues this new creature with his own magical dominance. His plan to destroy present day Wonder Woman went awry when she destroyed Genocide. Angered, he got a son of Poseidon to attack Themyscira, during which Wonder Woman confronts him and kills him by striking his head with a battle axe, splitting his helmet and presumably his head in two.
Wonder.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. In the New 52, his appearances of a bald-headed, long-bearded, slender man with hollowed eyes and legs permanently smeared with blood. His dynamic with Wonder Woman is that of brother and sister. He also trains her for a while in the art of the warrior, but she lacks the kind of killer instinct, so he's kind of left disappointed and abandons her. In conclusion, the kind of story is that the firstborn, which is their elder brother, he's going around causing trouble. So in conclusion of that, Wonder Woman ends up killing both Ares and the firstborn by smearing both of them, and then that kind of makes Ares proud, because it's like, oh, in that moment you done what I wanted you to do, so she's commended for it. In DC Rebirth reboot, Wonder Woman's origin is retold in the Year One storyline. A group of people called the Seer Group terrorise a mall where Diana and her friends are exploring. They have been infected with the Maru virus, which causes them to lash out in homicidal rage. Though Diana and Steve Trevor are able to defeat them, Barbara and Minerva, Cheetah, discovers Seer is an anagram of Ares. Great detective work. The god of war attacks shortly after this discovery. He reveals his desire to spread the virus across the world in major locations with the hope of turning most of the human population into warring killers to fuel his power. Diana offers him Themyscira's location in exchange for him sparing everyone, though Ares discovers she has no memory of his location. As a sacrifice of leaving the island, Diana was barred from returning by losing her knowledge of how to return. Accepting her new role to save mankind, Diana, with the help of the patron gods in animal form, subdue Ares with the lasso of truth. Diana and her friends are given the locations where Ares have sent the virus, and she's christened Wonder Woman for her heroics. Soon after, Ares' son Deimos and Phobos conspire to free Ares from his imprisonment on Themyscira. They coerce Veronica Cale into aiding them by kidnapping the soul of her daughter, Isidore. However, several years later, and Cale and her associate Dr. Cyber still have no luck finding the island. Meanwhile, Cale was plotting against Deimos and Phobos and recruited the sorcerer Circe into trapping the twins in the bodies of two dogs, basically. In terms of his powers, like any kind of god of Olympus, is immortal. He possesses tremendous strength, and he is perhaps one of the strongest of all the Olympian gods, only rivaled by Hercules. He is a master of conflict and strategy with centuries of experience in the field and has complete telekinetic command. and mastery over any weapon. He also possesses superhuman speed and agility equal to that of Hermes once he absorbs massive amounts of psychic energies that give him his powers due to worship by people. Uh, Pertaining to him being a war god, violence, anger, hate, death, and bloodshed make him stronger and heals any wounds he may receive. His armour is virtually indestructible and his weapons are stronger than mortal ones. He can shapeshift into any being at will and can teleport himself and others. At one time he was recognised as the death god, having control of death and able to resurrect and command a whole army of the undead. Being a god, he is also immortal and cannot be harmed by mortal weapons, only magic ones.
So Ares is, I think Cheetah's normally held up as Wonder Woman's main villain, but it's more Ares by the sound. I think he's more tied to her.
Yep.
He's perpetually the pain in the ass.
He's relevant in the sense that whereas Cheetah would be a direct threat, his kind of he can go off and do other stuff and still affect her without being up in her face, you know what I mean? He can be plotting from behind the scenes and his presence is always kind of felt, and is more on the level as well, being a god. She's pretty much a demigod herself.
Which is why I wonder if they really will kill Ares off in the new movie. You could keep him around in a Loki kind of way, even though I don't think he's going to be anything like Loki, but I think you can keep him around in that sort of way. Do we know who's playing him in the film?
Yeah, David Thewlis or whatever.
Oh,
the guy who plays Lupin from Harry Potter, yeah. So that's the kind of human form. He's like a lord or something like that, like a high kind of ranking guy in England, I guess. Also in the film, there's that German kind of guy, so he's probably a conspirator, and obviously Dr. Poison as well. They're like his influence in them, kind of like how his people kind of did whatever during the war, kind of split off and took different factions. So yeah, but obviously he's going to turn into his proper form because there have been kind of flashes of him, and there's like, look, the toys always spoil it because they always bring out the toys leading up to the film, don't they? So he's kind of got like pretty much how he kind of is, like a dark suit of kind of centurion armor, and like his helmet's like, I guess you can't really see his face, it's got like an open helmet and like big like tusks kind of thing, and just a weird kind of like funny head skull thingy going on. So it looks,
I suppose they wanted to jazz it up for the movie, didn't they? It's like the helmet, although you can't see his face anymore, the helmet's pretty simple in the comics.
Yeah. So yeah, he looks pretty sick in that, so we'll see where that goes. Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, so that's everything you need to know about Ares, one of the big Wonder Woman villains and antagonist of the Wonder Woman film. You heard it here first. I'm Sam.
I'm Matt.
And we are closing the files, and we'll open them soon. See you in the next one.